Welcome to another episode of Gorgeous Goddesses Don't Gatekeep. Today, Dee is going to teach you all about audio. Turn your volume up. That's it. That's the whole tutorial. No, I'm kidding. A gentle public service announcement for all streamers. Turn your volume up. Why? I know that seems like a no-brainer, but the majority of people who stream, they tend to make themselves quieter than they need to be. I want you to take a look over here at the audio mixer. On the far right, notice that it's going all the way into the red. That's my microphone, and you are getting that listening experience. I also have a bit of background music playing for the sake of this example for you to see right here. This is an output for the majority of sound effects and other things that you'll hear throughout my streams. When you're streaming, you actually want your volume to be up in this red section because when your listeners are enjoying your stream, they can't make you louder past a certain point. If you are like Dee when Dee first started out streaming, your volume for your microphone is probably right here. Do you see that little green spot where it turns to yellow? Yep. That's where Dee was when Dee started streaming. And the majority of people who came to Dee streams used to be like, hey Dee, we can't hear you. Hey, we can't hear you, Dee. And that's because there's a limit to how loud a set of headphones, or speakers for that matter, can actually make you. But there is absolutely no limit to how quiet people can make your sound. We can even turn it all the way off. So with that in mind, you want to actually make yourself louder than you think you need to be. But Dee, when I get loud, I peak, and nobody can hear me, and nobody can understand the words coming out of my mouth. Have no fear. Dee is here, and I'm going to guide you through it. Keep your audio hovering around the red. So that means the majority of your speaking audio should be right above or right below this -10 decibel line. Yes, you can go all the way into the red, and I'm going to show you how to do that comfortably without destroying your audience's eardrums. This right here is the output sound that I use for sound effects, for alerts, things like that. Notice how it didn't go above this -25. Keep background music and other background sounds at or around -30 decibels or below. But Dee, that might be a little bit too quiet for my audience. Reason for this is when you have a bunch of sounds layered on top of each other, they're gonna get really loud, really quick, and you don't wanna overpower you because people are here to hear you. Above all, you want to make sure that there's like a 10 to 15 decibel gap between your speaking volume and everything else you do on stream. Let's go into some specifics for volume. I will briefly cover audio filters and audio separation so that you don't get DMCA'd when you play a VOD back. Be advised, when you prepare your audio so that you don't get pinged for DMCA, it also means you're going to be removing a lot of audio from the background. Keep that in mind when you're creating your VOD tracks. If you're not comfortable just having a completely silent VOD, grab that track, slap some BGM underneath it, or consider separating your audio tracks the way I'm going to show you here. From your audio mixer, you're going to hit the triple dot, Advanced Audio Properties, to open up the Advanced Audio Properties menu, and that will open up this window that you see below on the screen. The Advanced Audio Properties window is one of many ways to look at which audio tracks your different types of audio are being broadcasted on. I want you to pay attention to how I separate my tracks right here. I have some things clicked on track 1, some things unclicked on track 2, and so on and so forth through 6 tracks of audio. Let's take a look at why I have things on and off. As a brief rule of thumb for how I separate my audio tracks, 1 is going to be a specific channel, 2 is a specific channel, and each of these audio tracks is separated out for my editors. 3 is where I put my microphones, my karaoke mic, my regular speaking mic, and other things that have different filters on them. 4 is where I do things like my BGM or background audio for ambiance. 5 is alerts, and 6 is going to be my general output for all other audio, including some game audio. With that in mind, let's take a look at how you set which tracks are captured. When I say how your stuff is being captured, I mean that literally. We're going to open up the settings menu in OBS to set which channels are captured for recording, for VODs, and for streaming. You're going to go to your output tab under the streaming settings. I'm live and recording this video right now, so you'll notice that these are grayed out, but you can still make out where the dots are. Looking here at the kind of grayed out dot, you'll see that the audio track for my primary streams is audio track 1. That means all the things that I want the audience to hear have to have this box checked. So it would make sense now why all of the boxes for each type of audio that I have in my stream have box 1 checked. Now, here, I have the little box checked for where I want my Twitch VOD audio to be, and that I want it specifically on a different track. I have track 2 selected, and this is where all the audio for my VOD track is going to be saved. That's the simple part. Now, for those of you at home who are recording your streams at the same time that you're streaming, for an editor, you're going to want to do something similar on your recording tab. Right down here for audio track, make sure you're selecting all 6 tracks. If you're not selecting all 6 tracks, not every track will be captured in your recording. So now you know why I have some things checked for audio track 1 and some things unchecked for audio track 2. Knowing what we know now about how my stream audio is separated, you can now understand why everything is checked for track 1. If I were to uncheck any of these from track 1, it would not be broadcast while I'm streaming, because track 1 I have selected for audio output during streams. Anything that is unchecked on track 2, so here you see my output captures, this will not be on the VOD. So a rule of thumb here for audio, check it if you want it to exist. That's the simply put version. Just those changes in the advanced audio property window and in your settings will ensure that you do not get pinged for DMCA. But one last thing. I told you about maintaining your volume, and that might be hard for some people who don't have the proper filters on their microphone. So I'm going to give you a quick, dirty overview about audio filters. For this final part of our tutorial, we're going to talk about 3 different types of audio filters I would recommend for folks who are streaming. You don't have to have these, but they come in handy, especially if you don't want to break people's eardrums. To get to the filter menu, you're going to click on the triple dots again, but this time we're going to go to filters. These are the primary filters that I put on my main microphone. You'll see that some of them are not active. These are, as I have them named, my reverb filters. But the 3 kinds of filters I want you to focus on for your own content is going to be compression, equalization, and de-noise. This is not going to be very in-depth, just so that I can give you an overview of how these filters work. Filters are processed top-down in OBS, meaning anything you put on the bottom is going to be applied last to your voice. You want at the very bottom of this stack of filters for you to have your compression or a limiter. To add a filter to your microphone, we're going to hit this little plus button or right-click, and we're going to go to Add. A compressor is going to compress your voice. A limiter is going to limit your voice. Kind of sounds like they do a similar thing, but they don't. When you use a limiter, anytime your volume hits this threshold, in case of the example on the screen, -6 decibels, it's going to cut your volume off. So a limiter is going to take your volume and stop it from going further. A compressor is going to try and keep all of your volume around the same level. You can have both, but wherever you put them, they should be near the bottom of your stack in your filter list. Let's say you don't have the time to work with a compressor. You can absolutely throw a limiter on there, and I recommend sitting it nice and pretty at -6 decibels. That way, you're never going to blast your audience's eardrums out. In fact, I have a limiter filter on my Discord so that my friends don't blow out the eardrums of my chat. Now let's talk about this compressor. The compressor works by taking all of your volume when it hits a certain point and squishing it down by whatever ratio you identify. You can, of course, use the default settings, but I do recommend you play around with this to find what works for your voice. Pay attention to how it affects the volume. I add an output gain to all of the noises that come out of my mouth because this way I'm equalizing the volume and normalizing it all to a certain degree, because I'll never get too loud and I'll never get too quiet so long as I have these settings. Play around with the compressor a bit and find what works for you. Going over the settings real quick, the ratio is by how much the sound gets compressed. The threshold is at what point the volume of your voice gets compressed. Attack is how long it takes before the compression kicks on to bring that volume down. Release is how long after you are below the threshold that it will return your volume to normal. And gain is an artificial boost to your volume. So that's compression. Let's look at the other two. The next being equalization. I use the Marvel GEQ plugin by Vox & Go, and I'll show you a bit of that interface just so you can see the title if nothing else. This is just a linear equalizer where it shows the different channels that your voice can be producing sound at, and it lets you adjust them. Equalizers are a bit advanced, and it can be hard to figure out which volume levels for what you should be adjusting for your voice. But a good rule of thumb is low tones are bassy, and it's also where background fuzz comes from. Midtones are nice and warm. Everything high makes things crisp. For more information, please look at an equalizer tutorial specifically, because that's not the purpose of this video. What an equalizer does is it takes your existing volume settings, your existing microphone sounds, and it adjusts the way they're perceived by the human ear. The last thing is looking at denoising, which everybody should be using regardless of how quiet your environment is. I use RX8, which is normally very expensive, but I got it on sale. We love a good sale out here. You can use the built-in noise suppression tool for OBS, or grab Reaper. Reaper is a free plugin that you can use that does the exact same thing with similar results. Any denoiser is going to function the same way, by removing removing noises. And, as I mentioned earlier, the low parts is where most background noise, buzz, fan stuff occurs. Look at what happens when I'm completely silent. Notice that it's only this far left portion that's still moving. When you first set up a denoiser, you have to use a calibration or some kind of learning mechanism. For RX8, it's just learn, and it will analyze your environment. Look at what happens when I hit the learn button. You have to make sure that you're being completely silent, because what it's doing is it's capturing the volume of your environment, and it will adjust this curve to remove sound that is outside of this curve. The learn button allows you to set the ambient volume for your environment. I'm going to be quiet when I do this next, okay? And I'm going to let it adapt itself properly. Once you have locked in the background volume for your environment, you'll find that you have a lot less buzz, hiss, and fan sounds to deal with. This is really nice, especially if you live like Dee does, with other people moving around the house and you've got roomies. This way you won't have to worry about every shuffle of footsteps in the hallway, slamming of doors, or if you have incredibly loud neighbors who like to play the drums at 3 in the morning. If only there were noise suppressors for life. The most important part of using a denoiser is to make the listening experience as clean as possible for your audience as you can. And there you have it. The 3 most important filters that I recommend you use for nice, clean, good quality audio. Now I have one more tool in my arsenal. Gain is just more volume adjustment so that my compressor kicks on almost always to even out my voice. This is how I modulate my voice and keep it from peaking. My compressor keeps it from blasting your eardrums out. Gain makes sure I'm super loud all the time so that I'm always being compressed past a certain point. But I have a de-esser. Because of the way I talk, I have very high sibilance, which means my S sounds, my T's, my S, all of this is really sharp because of how I pronounce words. I talk funny! Without this, I would sound incredibly sharp. You would hear a lot of the t-sk, but it's a lot more ASMR adjacent. You hear a lot more of the sharp, crisp noises. My microphone is also extraordinarily strong. I use the WA-47J warm audio mic, and it is a studio quality microphone. I was very privileged in having people who helped me purchase this microphone, but that microphone picks up a lot of extra noises. It's very sensitive. So I have a de-esser to offset some of that so that I'm not breaking your eardrums in half or, slicing them in half by doing lots of she sells seashells by the seashore. TDR Nova is a free plugin you can get. There's a wonderful tutorial I will link in the description of this video that will tell you all about adding in TDR Nova if you also have issues with sibilance. And there you have it, adjusting which audio tracks are on your output to ensure you do not get pinged for DMCA, and a little bit about what audio filters might be there to save the day. This has been another episode of Gorgeous Goddesses Don't Gatekeep. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful. And of course, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your D. Bye!